Hit start on that. So we're recording this information webinar, and it will be up on YouTube on the Bristol Housing Festival YouTube channel later today. My name is Andrew Stansbury. I'm Project Development Lead at the Bristol Housing Festival. It's wonderful to have so many of you here on this webinar about the Midland Road Design Competition. So just to give you an overview of how this session will work, I will hand over and introduce Sally and Harry in a minute, who are both from Brighter Places, who will introduce themselves and give you an overview of the design competition, the site, the vision, and the kind of designs that they are looking for. I'll then give a bit of an introduction to the Bristol Housing Festival, explain our involvement, what we do, why we're so excited about this design competition, and explain a bit more about the how the design competition will work, what we're looking for in stage one, the key deadlines. And then it'll mainly be a Q&A session for you to ask questions of Harry and Sally to if anything wasn't clear in the documents. And as we ask questions off the back of today, we will be updating the FAQs document in the publicly available folder that goes with the design competition, so that all the questions that are asked today will be represented there as well. So that FAQs document is a kind of working document that'll be rolling. So if you find you have questions that you forgot to ask, please feel free to email us, and we can then update the FAQs and answer your question. If you forget to ask a question today, that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. So we've had an amazing turnout. There's still a few people rumbling in, so I'll just I'll keep pedaling for another few minutes just to make sure people don't miss out on the info. Although I haven't got much more to say really, so we'll try and keep it to an hour if we can, but if there are lots and lots of questions, then it's more important that we answer the questions than rush. So we will be prioritizing that. Okay, let's roll from here. So let me introduce Harry and Sally, and well, I'll hand over to you two to introduce yourselves. But they're both from Brighter Places, heavily involved in this design competition. And Harry and Sally, if you want to then explain the site and the vision for why you're doing the design competition and what kind of things you're looking for. Once you've done that, then I'll explain about Bristol Housing Festival, talk more about the deadlines coming up, and then we'll move into a Q&A, and I'll explain how we'll manage that. So Harry, why don't I come to you first to introduce yourself, and then you can introduce Sally and go from there.
Great, yeah. So I am Harry. I'm a project manager working at Brighter Places. I work across a number of schemes, Midland Road being the biggest and most important. I thought we might say something about Brighter Places initially, but I don't want to steal Sally's thunder. But yeah, we're a Bristol-based housing association. We have a target of 3,000 homes by 2027. Our emphasis is on sort of community-led housing, and yeah, our pipeline is predominantly land-led schemes. I'm not sure if I've summarised that well, Sally, would you say?
Yeah, that's fine. I would say we've
Great.
got 1,000 new homes by 2027, Harry, not at 3,000. I think
That's
you're giving
right,
us a slightly larger target.
Sorry, yeah, we have a stock of 3,000. That's why.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so Midland Road, we're launching this design competition, and I think the intention really is to tease out some more innovative proposals. I was hoping I was thinking I would just share an image of the site if I can. Andrew, I think the screen sharing is currently disabled. Am I able to?
There you go, you should be able to now.
Great.
Shall I talk while you're... Oh, okay.
Ooh,
it's coming. It's coming.
Go on. All right. Yeah, so this is our site here. In terms of the immediate background, this is a bit distracting. You have a Curo development here, which is a recent housing association scheme. But you can see that there's a tendency towards higher density in the area. So you have Boxmaker's Yard over here, which is fairly recent. The Assembly, which is some new commercial office space. Castle Park View over here. And I think I'm right in saying this is Soapworks here, which recently got planning permission for over 200 flats on this site. So yeah, the area is growing, and there's a tendency towards high density, and we're hoping yeah, to do something similar on our site. Yeah, I'm not sure if you wanted to say something there, Sally.
Yeah, so well, I'm Sally Gilbert. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the development director at Brighter Places. Midland Road was a scheme that we bought, oh gosh, or a site that we bought back in, I think it was 2018, something like that. And we hit a really tricky time, I guess, in terms of things like Brexit and COVID and costs going up. We also, it was a difficult time for planning. It took us something like 2 years to get planning. It was when the mayor had launched the kind of, I know they don't like it called this, but the tall building strategy. And I had an aspiration that we would build something in the region of 10 stories, which he was up for, as were a number of other stakeholders within that. But it was because it was back in 2018, things like Castle Park hadn't been built. Some of those things that Harry's just shown you had not been built, and there was a real anxiety about setting a precedent in that area of having a tall building. And I think the planners, more actually the urban designers, just got anxious about it and ended up asking us to really, what I felt was, dumb it down to something that was sort of 4 to 5 stories, and very much a bit like the one that Curo have built since. They've got planning permission, got on and built it in the intervening period. And we got to a point where we were going to sign a contract with MySpace, and then they went bust. So as you can hear, that lots of things have happened to Midland Road. And I just realised at that point in time, it just gave us an opportunity to really rethink what we were doing. I just felt that we had gone too far away from what was my aspiration, which was that this would be a flagship scheme for us. It would be 100% affordable housing within sight of Temple Mead, city centre location. You know, that just felt great. All the other schemes around are, you know, very high quality, top of the market type values, you know, and nobody was going to be brave or had been brave enough to go for 100% affordable. We'd bought the land at a reasonable cost, albeit, you know, not cheap, and it felt, yeah, we were getting too far away from our vision, really. And so we had a walk around site with some planning consultants, and then we had this idea about a competition, to just say, I think we could do something really exciting here. We could get back to that being our flagship scheme. We need some help from some great architects. We've got loads of architects in Bristol that really have done some amazing things. Let's capitalize on that. We didn't want to bring people in from London, you know, just because they're in London doesn't mean to say they're the best architects ever. And we wanted it to be local, but we do want it to be exciting and really kind of push the boundaries a bit, but affordable too. It is affordable housing. So we are very conscious of the increased costs that are out there, but I think the cost per metre squared that we've set you guys as a target is a realistic one, and we also want it to be as sustainable as possible. Our original plan was for all of our homes to be passive house. We have got 3 sites that are passive house. We've stepped back a little bit from that, but we're still very much going for fabric first, 1.5 being a minimum air tightness, that sort of thing, and all renewables. Obviously this will connect to the district heat network. We've got lots of knowledge of the site now because we've been working on it for such a long time, and the constraints, etc. We've also got an excellent those of you who know us know that we are actually Bristol City Council's largest developing HA. Because we really only build in Bristol, we've taken up more of their affordable housing grant, and indeed Homes England housing grant, than anybody else. So whilst we're small, we punch well above our weight directly in Bristol. So we've got great relationships with officers and also members. We've got a superb relationship with the Deputy Mayor for Housing and also Marvin. So we're here to support achieving this. It's not sort of saying get out there and do it on your own. And I think we've got that kind of that infrastructure support that can really do this, we're committed to it, and we want to do it, but we want to be able to stand back and say, wow, we're all really proud. Whoever comes along and is our final partner, we're really proud of what we've done here, and it does look exciting, and it is 100% affordable.
Thank you, Sally. Harry, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think that's a pretty fair summary of what
Yeah,
what we're looking for here. Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was a very good job.
Yeah.
So let me just explain a bit of Bristol Housing Festival, why we're involved. So Bristol Housing Festival was a 5-year project. We're coming up to our 5-year anniversary in October, and our aim was to support and champion innovative housing technology in the city, to see Bristol become a living festival of new and upcoming housing solutions to help solve the housing crisis. Our priority is seeing affordable, high quality, climate smart homes built in the city, and we will work and support and champion any story, any organisation who are seeking to play their part in that goal and target. So we work very closely with the council with their Project 1000, their aim to build 1,000 affordable homes a year. And we work with key partners. We have a fantastic relationship with Brighter Places. We've known them for a number of years and worked with them for a number of years. We started doing design competitions a few years ago, where we were approached by Gorham Homes, the council's developing company, to run a design competition for their Redcliffe Way site. And it was a great success, where we were able to bring the community on board with the competition to get excited about helping to shape what could be done there, to get a shared vision of what could be done there. And Brighter Places approached us to do something similar for Midland Road, and we absolutely chomped at the bit and said yes please, wanted to be involved to help them and to help champion the narrative of, as Sally said, 100% affordable scheme, a flagship scheme that is as close to passive house as possible and high quality homes. And it's a unique viability challenge in a tight site, but it represents a really unique creative opportunity for an affordable housing scheme that could be seen as part of that city centre landscape, but also then replicated and championed across other sites across the city. So in terms of how the competition will work from here, so we have a deadline of 31st of August for the stage 1 competition. All of this will be in the competition brief and the FAQs. And what we're looking for at that deadline is not an extensive amount of work, but it's those broad brushstroke design concepts with a good ability to explain how you're hitting the criteria of the design brief, and some drawings to support that. So all of the criteria is laid out really clearly in the FAQs of what the limits are on word count and how many drawings to submit. We'll then meet, there's a judging panel that will meet. So Bristol Housing Festival will anonymise all the entries and pass them on to Brighter Places. And there's a judging panel that will meet in early September to look through those applications and to shortlist 3 to go through to stage 2. Those 3 will be given £1,500 to support their work to develop stage 2, and there'll be a brief that goes with stage 2 that lays out in more detail what needs to be included for that stage of the competition. So and the other things that will happen there is there'll be a stakeholder engagement event in stage 2 as well, just to talk with other organisations who have an interest in the site and interest in developments in the city to get their input. So those are all things to look forward to if you are selected to go through for stage 2. The competition's only open to architects based in the WECA region, West of England Combined Authority, or who have an office in the WECA region. If that, hopefully that is very clear, but any questions on that, then you can email us. All the email addresses are included in the design brief. So I think we can move on to a Q&A now, where it's an open time for you to ask questions to Sally and Harry to get more information, or me, but more information on the competition, anything that you want a bit more clarity on and that's not clear in the documentation that's included with what we've released so far for the competition. The way we'll manage that is there's a raise hand function on Zoom, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So if you can raise your hand, you've got a question, and I will try to whiz round and invite people to ask their questions as and when. So anyone got a question, do raise your hands, and we can get the Q&A section of this rolling. I'm hoping it'll put you to the front of my attention. Shall I start? All right. Have a little think. Otherwise, it'll be a very brief little Zoom. But we do welcome any questions you got.
Sorry, can I talk?
No, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to figure out where raise my hand is.
Oh, it's under reactions on the bottom there, and then just a little cheeky raised hand like that.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Have to apologies for bursting in. Hey, look, I've read through the brief. It's really exciting. Love this sort of stuff. I'm currently working on a sort of community project, and like this sort of community-led project. So really exciting to see you guys championing this. That's really cool. One of the things, and you probably have answered it, but I haven't seen it, was that this site feels perfect for a car-free scheme. And I think there was a suggestion that that's the way you guys wanted to go. You just want to have deliveries on site, but not have car parking on site. Am I right in thinking that?
Shall I answer that, Harry? I think what none of us have said is that there is an approved planning, or there is a planning approval for a scheme where, yeah, we don't want to use that, but and there was a requirement at that time to have disabled spaces, and yes, there is some commercial units again as part of the requirement. So there were some car parking spaces. I can't remember exactly how many, but certainly a few disabled spots. But yeah, as far as we're concerned, you shouldn't need a car if you live there. I would be a bit horrified if you had to, and I would expect that residents wouldn't expect to own a car. So
often on these sort of on community-led schemes, if you can get people, if there's a resident agreement, often that you can get the resident agreement where they can agree not to bring one to the site. Yeah, we
struggled with that on another site where residents did sign a declaration that they either had only one car or no cars, and the planners were insistent, and we had 1.5 spaces per property. We had far more, and we've still got far more than we want on that site, but highways do get quite hung up about it. I guess particularly for affordable housing, we do house families. That's a really important thing to say. These are not apartments or flats for professionals. They are our two-bed. Any of our homes are fully let. So if it's a 2-bed 4-person, there will be 4 people living in that. So I guess in terms of, we need to think about that it is families with children. I mean, there will be individuals as well. We would absolutely support if there is if we can work it through it being and there's a good enough argument for it to be car free, then yes, absolutely. It does feel like I think a car would be a hindrance in that locality. But there will have to be an argument, and certainly they kicked back at this your suggestion, which is we tried that elsewhere and they weren't having any of it, but that was in a different location. So it may be that yes, but we do have to recognize that we do have whilst the people who live there, who are the homes are let to initially, you can't then we wouldn't be able to, as a tenancy agreement, say you cannot have a car. That's that wouldn't be legal for us to say that. So we do have to reflect the needs of our residents and the voids and relets of those. So but certainly, I think it's a fair argument to have for it to be car free, because it's so central.
Yeah, understood. And sticking with car parking, my last thing is, would often the car share schemes that I know Bristol have been quite keen to put them on the highways sort of side of things. Would you consider a car share or anything?
We have to, as part of our grant agreements, we have to do car share and electric charging points, etc., etc. So we've already got a relationship with one of the car providers in the city, and we've got electric cars in a number of our schemes. So yeah,
great, thank you. That's me. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Sally. Thanks, Noah.
Where are you from, Noah? Sorry, can I just?
All over the world, but New Zealand first.
No, I don't mean that. What's your practice or your?
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, where are you from? No, Streeto Architects.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, no, thanks, Sally. So no, make a good point there in terms of how to raise your hand. So there's a reactions button at the bottom. If you press that, and then there's a raise hand option. There should be. So anyone else got a question? Please just multiple people can raise their hands, and we can keep asking questions because it will bump you to the top of my screen. So any other questions about this design competition? Simon, please do go for it. You're on mute though, so I'll have to do that one first. Thank you.
There we go. I'll do that. Sorry. Morning, everyone. I'm Simon from Wilmars Architects, and I just wanted to pick up on, Sally, you mentioned the previous application.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a large amount of public consultation carried out during that process?
Yeah, there was, and we had a lot of involvement with the Old Market, what they called, Harry? Old Market
Old Market
Forum
Community Association.
Yeah, so yes, we have. They probably are our hardest nut to crack, which is also why Bristol Housing Festival are going to do fantastic things there. But yeah, we've got a relationship with the school, thingy more. What's it called, Harry?
No more.
Pardon?
Animal.
Oh, Hannamore, that's it. Yep, we know the head teacher, and yes, we've sort of certainly in the vicinity there was support for it. Yeah, the Old Market Forum are not the easiest guys to work with, but that's partly also why we're going to have a planning consultant on board. And yeah, Bristol Housing Festival are going to help us through that process. That's one of their great strengths, I think, is consultation. We would like to think as a housing association we're good at that as well, and you would like to think that you wouldn't have too many objections because it is 100% affordable, but sometimes that isn't the case. But again, we have long-term relationships with all the councillors, as I said, the Deputy Mayor for Housing. So from that point of view, we're pushing an open door, but neighbour consultations are always a challenge, but that's the Housing Festival are going to help us with that.
Thanks, Sally. Yes, on that, we've already started dialogue with the Old Market Community Association, and they're really keen to be involved with the competition in shaping with, hopefully on the judging panel, and with the stakeholder engagement event as well. So they're thankful to be involved at this stage and in the competition. So that'll be a helpful dialogue.
And actually, we've just won an award with the Bristol Civic Society, so we've made some really good contacts there. And I was thinking it would be useful to get them on board at an early stage, because again, they are key stakeholders in the city and do have a good voice. So they think we're great. So I'm hoping that that we can perhaps get some of that influence and talk to them.
Thanks, Sally. Great. Anything follow up there, Simon, or are you happy with that?
Well, just to kind of check in on, and I haven't looked at the previous plan application, but is there a summary of the kind of concerns from those engagement meetings?
Yeah, there will be on the planning portal, all the comments and objections or any of those sorts of things will probably still be on the planning portal. I would have thought we can provide you with I mean, yeah, we could probably provide you with a summary if that was helpful, but indeed we certainly can give you the planning application number and you can look at whatever you want to look at. Then there will be the whole, there's a lot of documents in there.
Sure. Yeah, we'll have a look. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Lindsay.
Hi there. Morning. Just a question. It's related to what Simon asked. And it has to do with the beneficiaries for the housing. So to what extent, if any extent, have we identified or is there any way to identify who will actually be living in the housing? And if not, which I assume is the answer, would Brighter Places be open to different models, perhaps cooperative models, whereby there is identification of who might eventually live there and working together with potential future owners or renters to then design and develop and deliver the housing? Thanks.
I'm probably best placed to answer that. We've just done, in fact, the scheme that we won the award for at the Bristol Civic Society was 50 homes in Lockleys, which was a self-finish model,
Right.
and very much, I would say, a sort of cooperative co-housing type model. That's yeah, so we're just fresh out of that. We've literally just finished it, so I could go into a lot more detail as to why I'm going to give you this answer, but the answer to your question is no.
Right. Okay.
So it would be 100% the we'd probably look at about 60-40 split in terms of 60% or 70-30, but 60-40 probably here, rented to shared ownership, and the rented would be social rent, and those are people from the housing register, so directly from the housing register, those in greatest housing need, and the 40% would be shared ownership, which you're probably familiar with, which is part owned, part rented.
Absolutely. Great.
So,
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Lindsay. Tony.
Hi, yes, thank you. My name's Tony, also from Wilmore Isles Architects. Had a couple of questions, if that's all right. One of the things, Sally, was that you mentioned moving slightly away from the Passive House credentials. Are you able to elaborate a little bit more on that? And is that a cost thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
We're struggling. We've got 3 schemes going, trying to start on site, and the tenders came back 50% higher than our most recent cost plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could say that the QSs are a bit out of touch, perhaps, or it's just the costs are going up, exponentially, and we are looking at the kind of internal investment in this. The schemes are ending up costing us more to build than their open market value. Now,
Yeah,
that doesn't necessarily matter in terms of the rented homes, but I can't do that with shared ownership. Obviously, we can't have them costing us more than they would be valued on the open market. We do our business model over 30 years, so that's not an immediate issue, but it is challenging, and so we have had to look at how realistic at the moment going for the fully certified passive house is. We are hoping to get back to that. So we don't want to get too far away. So we have got, and we've shared this with you, our sort of our brief around our sustainability brief. So it's still, as I said, 1.5 air tightness, but that's I think passive is 0.6, isn't it? But we are expecting triple glazed, MVHR, solar. What else is on the list, Harry? Can you remind me? A number of things. So we don't want to detract too far from passive house because we would like to return to it. But right now, that full-blown, PHPP and the certification is just, it feels like it's the extra cost. We just find it difficult to justify. But we absolutely, our big driver around all of this sustainability is fuel poverty for our residents. Okay. We need them to have enough cash to pay their rent, not to be worrying about their heating bills. But of course, hot water is, however good our fabric is, there will always be a heavy hot water demand for our residents. As I said, most of them are families. And so we need to be thinking about how we can help them keep those fuel bills to the lowest possible. And once it may be at the point that we get on site, we might be, or through the process, things may have changed and we might be able to go back to passive house. So certainly keep that in your minds, but and that is our aspiration, to get back there. But right now we've just had to step back a little bit. My finance director is a tough cookie to crack.
Yeah, and so then the follow-on question, I guess, from that is around the viability. So I assume because you've had a previous app gone in, you've done quite a lot of viability work. You mentioned,
we're talking about the difference between 50 homes on the previous application, and we are trying to achieve 70 here. Yeah. Which is why we're pushing to go higher. And we have, just to say, in terms of that higher, we're probably not expecting to get to 10 stories, but we have, again, done a lot of background work with the planners. The most senior planning officer, and I will follow up with the new head of planning, has said, you bring me something that delivers the things that I've asked you to, I'm not going to get hung up about how tall it is. Okay. So we've done that work for you. We wouldn't have started this competition if we weren't confident that with the right scheme, properly designed and thinking about the things that he has asked us to consider and incorporate into that design, we can go for it.
Okay, brilliant. So I think you mentioned 17 million. Is that a construction cost then?
Did I mention 17 million?
I think it does in the competition.
Does it?
Is that
Okay,
right?
I
Yeah.
think I specifically talked about the metre squared rate, but they probably, Harry and Andrew probably worked that out to how many square meters, and that sort of 17 million.
It's 17 million, 3,000 per metre squared is what's in the design brief.
17
Excellent.
million?
Of the construction budget, 17 million.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I think we're talking about something like 2,800 a square metre, which feels at the moment feels achievable. Yeah, and over 70 units, that means that this scheme would be viable.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you guys.
Harry, are you able to, was there any more you could just give on the sustainability brief, the things that need to be included on that before we move on?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Sally said, we like to get to, well, as close to passive house as possible. So it'd be air permeability of 1.5 MVHR. Space and hot water heating would be provided by the Bristol Heat Network. And it's worth just bearing in mind on that there are fairly stringent insulation requirements around the pipe work for the Bristol Heat Network, which has caused an issue in the past. So I think, yeah, bearing in mind the space that's needed for that. And then in each apartment, there'd be a heat interface unit for the Bristol Heat Network, and then MVHR as well.
Can I just quickly interject there on the district heat network? If any of you, and probably a number of you, won't have had experience of the district heat network, we, you know, one of the great things about our sector is that we work really collaboratively with each other. Whilst we're sometimes in competition and Section 106s, we still all have the same intent that we want to provide good quality affordable housing for people of the city. So Curo will be very happy to share all of their district heat experiences and how it could be done better. They did have a few issues. There was nothing, it wasn't the network itself, it was the interface side. So we can, you know, don't feel that there are, if you have concerns about that, we can support that. And one really key thing for me on the M&E side of things is that we don't want any of the M&E sustainability requirements to impact on people's storage. Found it so many times that schemes are designed to NDSS, which is great, and there's a minimum requirement for storage, and then all the M&E kit goes in those cupboards. That is not okay. And we, as I said, we have families, they have pushchairs, they have a lot of stuff, and they need to put it somewhere. And so I would prefer to have less units, but really good quality units that can be that are both buildable and usable.
Thank you, Sally. So you'll see in the brief that it says that all the apartments need to be minimum space standards plus space for the M&E equipment. So that's just off the back of what Sally said there. Thank you both. Charlie.
Hi there. I'm Charlie Palmer from Incremental Urbanism. So I'm just interested in the commercial spaces. You say in the brief, flexible ground floor commercial spaces. Do you have any information on this, or
it's probably worth reading again? If you look at the previous planning submission, we're a affordable housing provider, general needs affordable housing provider. We don't want commercial spaces. They're just a headache from our point of view. That's not our bag. However, the planners were pretty. The site was originally a builder's yard, or a building company, and their yard and offices, and there was this whole thing around loss of employment use, and so that was argued at the time, and this was the minimum that they were prepared to accept. But we are also very aware that a lot of schemes, including housing association schemes, build these commercial units because they have to as part of planning. They sit empty, and then they are finally converted into residential spaces. So the reason we say we want them to be flexible is that we are anticipating the same happening there. It would be lovely to think that we could get an active space on the ground floor, you know, a coffee shop, you know, they definitely lack a kind of a Tesco's Express or whatever down there, but we approached all of those types of people at the time. We had a commercial letting agent talking to the co-op and all sorts of people, and we didn't get any interest. We ended, the only interest we got was from sort of community run groups, nurseries, etc., who wouldn't be able to pay us rent. So yeah, I don't hold out a huge amount of hope, although obviously that area is developing now, and it may be that the site is more attractive to to businesses, but it's that sort of, it's a bit further away from that main old market street. So that's why we're asking for them to be flexible, you know, and again, that's something that we would want to look at early on, to try and have a, you know, a pre-let of those units. And we're not anti having them as commercial units, but I don't want them sat there empty, not bringing us in any rent. We have built that into the viability, instantly having a sort of a year where there is no rent. Does that answer your question, Charlie?
Yes, it does. That's really helpful.
There is a statement in the planning, on the planning portal. I think Harry's just popped the planning reference number. There is a kind of statement where we tried to argue against it, and you know, all of those things. But
just to say as well, on the adjacent Cura scheme, they don't have any commercial spaces, so they were able to argue that out at planning. So I think there'd be a discussion to be had there. Yeah.
But we might think that it would create a better scheme if there was some commercial units.
So the area of commercial space could be relatively small in terms of the ground floor. And we can be flexible in that going forwards. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Charlie. Any other questions? We've still got another 20 minutes open to us, and please do feel free to ask anything that you want about this.
Actually, just thinking that one through, the commercial units, because that could make quite a difference to people's design, that obviously all of those schemes that Harry showed you have come forward since our original planning application. So, and I know, say, the Soapworks and also Castle Park, which is not very far away, have got active ground floor spaces and commercial space. So it may be that now brings a completely different element to our scheme, and it might be very easy to argue them out altogether. So I wouldn't want it to constrain some, you know, ideas for that ground floor, those ground floor space or units or whatever. But we don't know until it's tested. We haven't asked the planners that.
Just wait another couple of minutes if there are any. Oh, William, thank you. William, over to you.
Hi, it's Will here from Marin's Architects. I was just going to ask, because I noted you had a requirement for some work from home space in the apartments. Would you be interested in sort of flexible co-working space in lieu of sort of commercial space on that ground floor, a bit like you get at Runway East in Bristol?
Yeah, I think absolutely. If we can get that past the planners and then yeah, I mean, we're open to anything on that ground floor space, really. I think one of the reasons that we've talked about, we've got some a scheme in Southmead, fantastic scheme that has lent itself. It's again got planning some long while ago, and we've gone through COVID and that whole working from home area. As you can see, I'm in my lounge because I don't have any space in my home, and I have to pack everything up every night, which is a right pain. And these units, I mean, obviously with flats it's a bit different, but we've creatively used space at the top of the stairs and just put a desk in there, but made sure things like there's enough power there, and you know, you do really have to think about it a bit. So it's kind of thinking about our residents, and that if they're working from home, they're not going to necessarily have the ability to install things themselves, put up shelving themselves, have the equipment or indeed the wherewithal to be able to do that. You know, we are talking about people who have very different priorities. Putting a plate of food in front of their children at night is their priority, and where we can help them enable spaces, as I say, shelving, or you know, using insects within walls or whatever to do that sort of thing, and create a home working space for them, then you know, let's do it.
Absolutely, no, that's really helpful, thank you.
And obviously also in the shared ownership properties, and they are likely to be, you know, potentially professionals, you know, you may or may not know this, but the criteria for being eligible for a shared ownership home is that the household must earn no more than £80,000, which is recognising how difficult it is to buy a property in Bristol.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Bristol particularly, and £80,000 is quite a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you.
Thanks, Will. Any more questions? Back to you, Charlie.
Hello again. Other question on play space. On your previous application, did you have any discussion with the planners around play space as a requirement? Or
yeah, it'd be worth you having a look at
Yeah.
the scheme. Sorry, Harry, I'm answering all the questions here. You
No, that's all right. Far
do you
away.
want to pick that one up, actually?
So I think
okay. Go on.
so I think on the current scheme we have a first floor open space, which was fairly expensive to do, just because it would have required a transfer deck. Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily the most sensible thing that we did there, really. Yeah, that was all I was going to say on it.
Have a look, Charlie. It's there, and it feels a bit of a kind of, we did something because we had to do it, and is it the best use of the space? Yeah. So yeah, it's a slightly tricky site in terms of most city centre sites have got a park really nearby, and this one hasn't really, not an obvious park. There is some space, but and we have talked about private outdoor space for everybody, so balconies or whatever. That is challenging because the MPPF talks about, you know, space for children to play, etc., etc. So yeah, we haven't got an immediate open space that we can say, well, it's provided here, so we don't need to provide it. So that is going to be definitely a challenge that we'll need some creativity. I did notice that there was I was looking at who was attending, there were some landscape architects, I think, and that's, if you guys have all got landscape people that you use, that's a good one for them to think about. Yeah, so I don't know, I'm not sure what we proposed or what was part of the previous planning was the best solution, but we've certainly got to think about it in this one.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to answer, Charlie, or that's all good?
No, that's good. I did have another question on bicycle parking, more from your previous experience on security around bicycle parking, and does it need a separate enclosure to...
So we had a huge bicycle park on the ground floor. Whilst we didn't have any car parking much, no, we had a massive massive bike park, which yeah, I don't know if we tested, and I'm not sure we've tested really on other schemes whether the bike parking is used to that extent. But if you think about typical families, they do have, the kids all might have a scooter and a, you know, and a small bike and parents' bikes, and you know, when you start adding those up, and it was secure, and I think there is a requirement in the planning, whether it's a specific to our grant requirement or it's just a general planning, I'm not sure, but for secure bike parking. Yeah, we have got some other schemes. It might be something that would be good for us to do, actually, a sort of in-use study to see how well used the bike parking is. But yeah, when you add up 70 flats and, you know, 2 or 3 bikes a person, you are talking about quite a lot of bike storage, aren't you?
Yes, definitely. But thanks, that's all my questions.
Thanks, Charlie. Anyone else? Oh yeah, Rob. And then we'll come to you after that, Noah.
Hi, Rob Bartlett from Pick Everard Architects. You've touched a bit on the unit mix and families. I think in the brief it's got a breakdown of 1 to 2 bedroom mix you'd like. Is there any sort of flexibility within that for 3-person units or 3-bed 5-person units?
We could, yeah. I mean, if you can introduce some 3-bed, the previous scheme did. You know, housing management love family accommodation, so 3-bed 5 would be that. There's no reason why not. Was it 2-bed 3-person, did you say?
Yeah,
yeah, we're less keen on that, as you can imagine. That doesn't, I mean, we want to provide sustainable tenancies, and if you're doing 2-bed 3-person, that's usually a couple and 1 child, and you know, it doesn't give them any ability to expand their family, and also often the 2nd bedroom, if it's a 2-bed 3, is usually quite small. And also reminding everybody of the kind of challenges of our residents, that, you know, providing a nice quality space both for, you know, living accommodation and bedrooms, and for children to have some personal space that feels ample rather than a very small single room. And the reason we go for the 2-bed 4, and we like the children's bedrooms to have kind of almost separate areas, so that they're, you know, they can have a single bed with a, you know, room for a bedside table that's sort of, they're not necessarily right next door to their sibling, because the rules are that our opposite sexes can share up to the age of 13, and then yeah, so giving children a bit of space from one another is, you know, albeit within one room, is, I know I was adding so many things here that you've got to consider. I do appreciate that it's not trying to make it sound so hard that it's, we don't want you to enter. We do.
Well, and that bit around what age they can share to is not Bryce Place's policy, that's social rent policy, isn't it? So that's out of our control. Any follow-up questions there, Rob?
Yeah, just another one quickly on the mix. So for Part M requirements and accessible units, do Brighter Places have any sort of requirement for a percentage, or would that be led by Bristol City Council?
Yeah, it's just the Bristol City Council. I think it's 5%, isn't it? No, we don't have anything. But again, we want those spaces to be usable. We recently had to change one of our units on a scheme that was a sort of developer led. We inherited the design, and there was a 3-bed disabled unit, which is fantastic, but they couldn't actually get to it because the corridors weren't wide enough. Great whilst you were in there, you know. It's those sorts of things you've just got to be thoughtful about. But certainly open to, you know, housing mixes. I mean, we wouldn't want all 1 bed, for instance, but you know, we accept that there will have to be some 2-bed 3-person. The likelihood is, you know.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
we just want to be thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know obviously we're keen to get the dual aspect in.
Yeah.
But obviously we're trying to get a lot on the site. So is there some flexibility there that there may be a percentage which will have to be single aspect units?
Yeah, and it's all about compromise, isn't it, really, that as long as there's narrative that goes with, you know, we've you know, the design incorporates more 2-bed 3-person than you perhaps would like, but that is because we have gone for as much dual aspect as possible, or we felt that, you know, as long as it's thought through and there is rationale behind it, then we are absolutely open to that. We're not saying there is this list of criteria that you categorically have to meet. There will be some, this is why our design looks the way that it is, and all of those things will be on merit of the overall design and the usability. But it's really, because I know that you guys, you know, as architects will have incredibly creative minds, and, you know, design and the aesthetics of something, which is, we want it to be exciting and really, like, people kind of go, wow, and did you know that was a affordable housing? But equally, those units have to be usable. And I don't want housing management saying, yeah, looks great, but nobody wants to rent them.
Thank you. Thanks, Sally.
Thanks, Rob. Noah, over to you.
Thanks for that. Just a couple of quick questions. I've used the bike parking at Temple Meads quite a lot, and it's really good because it's dual level, it's hydraulic, and all the rest of it. But I have had schemes that have been criticised for using that dual level bike parking, gas assisted bike parking, like at Temple Meads. Are you open to that sort of idea? It's quite efficient on space.
Yeah.
But
I've seen it and never used it. I did wonder whether it how easy it is. As long as it's easy. I mean, we've got some in a couple of schemes, we've got these just fixed racks where you have to pull your bike onto its back wheel. And I'm a keen cyclist, and you have those on trains as well, and I find that really difficult. And that does concern me. But if there is a system that is usable, and it's not tough for somebody who's not as strong, whatever, then absolutely open to any innovations, really.
It's
as long as
a
it's not a sort of long-term maintenance issue, say it's gas powered, that kind of. If I am also, I introduced myself as development director, but actually more recently I've got a new job where I feel like I'm responsible for bloody everything at the organization. So it's asset management, compliance, response repairs, and development all come under me now. So I'm not that I wasn't mindful of it before, but I'm even more mindful now that we don't want to give the maintenance guys a real headache replacing gas canisters or whatever. I'm not sure how those things work, but certainly we are absolutely open to any innovations that, there must be stuff in city centre locations that we can learn from.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, no, I've never actually seen any of them out of order. So that must be pretty good. Thank you for that. The only other thing is that obviously it's quite a big scheme, and if it goes up to 10 stories, it's going to be, there's going to be a few people there. Would you consider, from a viability point, would you consider two lifts on either corner in order to make that work? Are you thinking just a single lift?
No, I would expect you to be incorporating two, to be honest.
Yep. Good.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I would.
That's fine. Yep.
We're not going to 10 stories, by the way. No, don't scare me.
I
didn't get the planner to agree to 10.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you for that. That's great.
Thanks, Noah. We've got a couple of minutes if there's one or two more questions, but if not, we'll wrap up. So I'll just leave it a minute now, just in case there's anyone else who wants to ask anything before we wrap up. Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us. If you have any other questions, then you can email the Bristol Housing Festival admin@bristolhousingfestival.org.uk, and we'll get back to you. We'll update the FAQs with all of this information. I'll also try to include a link to the historic planning application as well in there, so that you can find that quick and easily. But it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks for your questions. Thank you to Sally and Harry for fielding those and for being able to answer them so comprehensively. And we look forward to seeing your submissions before the 31st. Personally, the earlier you get them to me, the more appreciative I'll be, because so I don't smash through a load of anonymizations over that weekend. So, but anyway, no. Deadlines are on 31st. Sally, and you can say whatever you want, Sally. You've got 4 minutes.
Great. I was just going to say, not only if there's all the information on the planning portal, if there's any other documentation that you think would be useful, I mean, there should be the most relevant grounds investigations, etc. But we did do some more work post demolition. So if there's anything that really will be critical to your design, or you just want to read around a bit more and you think we might have it, then we'll share anything with you that we have. So please ask, or Harry will. Won't you, Harry?
I will do, yeah.
So yeah, just any requests like that, just email admin@bristolhousingfestival.org.uk and we'll action it and get it online. But it's been brilliant being with you. This will be up on YouTube if you want to listen back or watch back or pass on to colleagues on the Bristol Housing Festival YouTube channel. And last thing to do is say goodbye. Thanks so much for being here, and look forward to seeing your applications.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.